If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then this, the UK Property Market Stats Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I have a special guest. This week it is Bryan Mansell. We'll come to Bryan in a second. The purpose of this show is to show you what's happening in the property market right here, right now. If you look at other indexes like the Halifax, you're looking at sales of nationwide, you're looking at sales that were agreed 2, 3, 4 months ago. If you look at the land registry data, you're looking at sales that took place 6, 7, 8 months ago. We're looking at the property market from last week. We're talking about house prices. We're talking about sales. We're talking about exchanges, price reductions. We're talking about rents. We're talking about everything to do with the property market. So if you want to know what's happening in the property market, then stay with us for the next hour. And we will go through what's happening in the property market so you've got a better idea. This week, I'm joined by Bryan Mansell, who is big in the game when it comes to property. He runs a firm called Gazelle, which helps homeowners cut down their fall-throughs. And he used to be a big in the game director for Countrywide when they were a massive force in the industry. Thanks for joining me today, Bryan. Chris,
as always, it is my pleasure.
Exceptional. It's been a few months since you've been on the show because we've got quite a few honorary guests. But as I said, don't tell everyone, but you're my favourite. But I will say that to everyone as well. But you know that.
I do watch the show every time. I know you say that, so that's fine.
Okay.
My favourite stat show presenter, put it that way.
There you go. Whose name begins with B and ends in Ryan.
You're Ryan. Yeah.
Right then. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, less of the laugh and the banter, and let's get down to the property. So we're dealing with week 19, which is, I'm just looking at the calendar, Monday the 6th of May to Sunday the 12th of May, inclusive. And we just want to say for the record, ladies and gentlemen, as it was predicted last week, that this week was a bank holiday week. So that will affect the numbers. So I just wanted to preface that the bottom line is that some of the numbers are down off the trends, but we will look at that and compare that with other bank holiday weeks, and you'll see that there's absolutely nothing to worry about. For those of you who have not watched the show, the show lasts approximately an hour. The first half looks at the UK property market, and then the second half is we really deep dive and go and look at a local property market, really getting our hands mucky and just seeing what's happening in that property market. This week, we're going to the beautiful city of Hereford, which is the home of the SAS. Bryan, have you ever been there, mate?
I have, yeah. Beautiful, beautiful part of the world.
Excellent, excellent. Never been there myself, so I'd love to go there one day. But anyway, what we're going to do is, I said, let's do the first half and let's dive in and go and have a look at the Stallaroonies for the UK property market. So, Bryan, as always, we start with the listings. So I'll just go through some raw numbers and then you can give us your insight and then we'll move on to the next section. So this week, the number of listings was 32,778, with an average asking price of the properties coming on the market, 464,745. Year to date, the number of listings is 666,945, which compared with the year to date last year was 603,633, means that is 10.5% up on last year. And if you compare us with 17, 18 and 19, which were more normal years, we are 9.1% ahead of the game when it comes to listings. Okay. Let's go back to the graphs again. There we go. And this white line shows us the white line on the graph that you can see here. And anyone who's listening to this on the podcast, then again, these graphs are available to download. And again, anyone listening on YouTube, watching on YouTube, if you go to YouTube in the written description, if you scroll down to the bottom, there will be a little link there where you can download these graphs. The white line shows the number of listings this week, and you can quite clearly see that there is a drop down in the white line. And that is because of the bank holiday. And the other drop was this thing called Easter. You know, it comes on every year and it surprises us all. Any thoughts on this, Bryan?
Nothing other than it's a normal market trend. As you can see in advance, we'll have another bank holiday at the end of May in a couple of weeks. The exact same pattern will appear, I'm pretty sure, where we'll see some growth between now and then a seismic drop off and then a recovery. What I'm really looking forward to is essentially the week 24 onwards to see that's where you'll see the recovery of the market this year versus the previous few years. And I don't right now see anything other than a general election at some point that could have any market turmoil. So I expect the numbers to be stronger actually this year than, those coloured graphs from week 23 onwards.
Yeah. And again, just as you can see here, that up until, what happens here, you can see all the lines here. So the pink line is 23, the green line is 19, the turquoise is 18, and the yellow line is 17. Is that what happens is we're off the marks in January, and then we I think the best thing is to look at what happened between Feb, March, and April, and then there's always 3 dips, Easter, and these are all the Easter dips. The bank holidays tend to come fixed. They're very close to each other, but the Easter obviously moves because of the way Easter falls. But as you say, it always happens. So really nothing particularly to be worried about. We just need to show that bounces back next week. Anything else on listings before we carry on?
No, I think the theme of obviously having looked through all of these prior to coming on, the notes that I'd made, and certainly conversations I've been having during the period between the last week or so, is that there's a lot of positivity in the market, which is great from agents. My message to a number of agents is, you are now absolutely need to make hay while the sun shines. We've got a lot of excess stock, which we'll see no doubt as we go through the graphs. So focus really on getting that, that stock, that inventory moved into sales as quickly as possible. And I expect that we should have a stronger second half of the year. There's a lot of ifs and buts, as there always are, but really, it's a case of looking. You can see what's going to happen in a couple of weeks' time with May, but really get on it now and get these listings marketed, prices changed if they need to be, and get your sales pipelines up because it could be quarter 3, quarter 4, H2 this year. There might be a little bit of turmoil in there. We're not out of the woods yet with inflation. Look at the wage rises might impact the inflation targets. Interest rates, we expected at the beginning of the year that in May we would have seen by now potentially a slight shaving of that, but it's been held. And we all keep our fingers crossed that we may see reductions on that coming forward. But obviously, if they do, then it's going to have an impact on pricing. So the market will normally stay relative. So get these places sold as quickly as possible.
Indeed. So in terms of the number of price reductions, we reduced, let's just pull the numbers up here, 20,663 properties, which means that we are reducing 1 in 7.2%, no, not percent, 1 in 7.17 of our properties on a monthly basis. We're considering there's an awful lot of overvaluing at the moment, which we'll show you some graphs in a second. That does concern me. That we're not working our stock. I mean, there's no harm in putting it overvaluing, but it's what you actually do with it. And again, I know a lot of people will disagree with me on this one, but I think if you put the house on the market, you should actually vendor manage it, and you should get the reduction and not leave it to the next.
I'm going to just pull you up there, Chris, very quickly, because I don't necessarily agree with it's a case of people not working their stock, because actually when you look at the statistics there, you can argue quite positively for the fact that people are working their stock because they're achieving a high number of reductions or changes. And by changes for your...
Yes, but it's on stock levels. To give you an idea, in 2021, we were reducing 1 in 9. But last year, when we're looking at 17, 18, and 19, we were reducing 1 in 8 properties.
Yeah, but if you're looking at the number of new listings as it's rising, we've seen up, apart from the blip we've had with the bank holiday, then naturally, I think one of the key questions here for your viewers and listeners that I'd really like to see, and I think it's very important to look at this, which is the amount of time between a freshly listed property and its first change. And I think if you add that in, you're going to see, you'll get a few more answers to the question of, are we working our stock or are we not? Are we working stock that's 4 weeks old constantly, or are we working it after 2 weeks, or is it 8 weeks, which is probably too late? And then you're just not making big enough changes. So really, when do these changes, these 20,000 changes, when did they take place in relation to the actual day they were listed?
So I can't disagree with you. I'm just saying that I think it should be the valuer that does it. But there you go. That's just call me old-fashioned. Bit of grey.
No.
Okay.
The best for the job is who has the best relationship.
And as I say, Bryan, no grey hair with you, and I think we're similar age as well. So you must have come from good start.
Absolutely.
Anyway, let's move on. Listen to the banter. People have not come to listen to our banterage. So number of sales this week was 23,623, which when you consider last week was 27,591, that is a bit of a drop. But if you actually I'll just give you an idea. The average number of sales per week this year has been 24,008. So we are literally just under the average for the year. We've just had some
23.6, wasn't it? We did this week. Was it 23,000 or something like that?
this week, 23,628, and the average is 24,008. So we are 300 below the running average for the year.
This week will be the important week. The next 2 weeks we'll see if there's a real if the changes to prices are actually affecting sales. Because if there's more changes from the stock, we should see a much bigger spike in gross sales. I'd always expect that in a relatively normal market conditions after a bank holiday, we'd see a jump. So let's hope that happens.
I mean, I've got the first two. I mean, we're filming this on Wednesday the 15th. It doesn't come out until Friday the 17th. I do have access, but it's too early data because I mean, this is really interesting, is that the vast majority of sales take place on a Thursday and Friday.
They do, yeah, absolutely.
Which means that whenever you have access to, I learned years ago not to look at the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday's figures because you'd have a heart attack thinking, "Oh my God, Armageddon's come," and then they catch up. So
you always get, Saturdays for viewings, Mondays for offers, Tuesday, Wednesdays for negging it, Thursdays for getting it in the book, Friday is for signing it off. It's it's kind of consistent all over the years.
Good stuff. Right. So year to date, 456,000 sales gross, which is 10.9% further on than the 23 figure of 411,400 and 7.7% ahead of the average of 17, 18 and 19. The average price of a property sale agreed 372, and the number, as I said, number of sales 23,628. Whilst we're on it, the difference between the average price of a property sale agreed. So this was the asking price. What it sold for, we don't know yet, but there is, as we all know, there is a direct relationship between the asking price and what it tends to achieve. And if you look at Hampton's produce a fantastic report, and since 2008, the gap between asking price and sale agreed has remained pretty constant between an average of 1% and 2%. So does it, is it ideal? No, but it's pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good. Put it into perspective. That's £83.5 million of commission per week being generated by gross sales.
There you go. He knows his figures, ladies and gentlemen. So the red line is the average asking price of the properties coming onto the market. The orange line is the average asking price of a property going sale agreed this week. And it's the gap between the two that's important. The long-term running average is 16 or 17%. And this week we are at, I'll just pull up the figures. Hold on a second. We are at, here we go, 24.6%. And we have been running at around 24 the early to mid 20s for quite a while. So this does concern me. And some of this, I've been doing some analysis. Some of this is overvaluing, and some of this is more properties coming on the market in London, which does tend to screw the averages a bit.
Yeah, I think the important thing to point out to everybody here that's watching this is that is not a graph that says a house lists at 445 or 450 and that house sells at 360. Okay, that's the really important, because the layman could look at that and make the wrong judgment on, we'll go out and look at houses at 445 and all we're going to offer is 360, 370 because Chris's graph shows that's the average. That's not accurate. And I think it's an important point to make, obviously.
Yeah. Just to clarify, to take on from what Bryan is saying there, is this: higher priced properties have a lower propensity or chance of selling. Therefore, if lower priced properties are the ones that have a greater chance of selling, it's going to drag the average down. Hence the gap. It's the long-term average for the last 6 or 7 years is 16 or 17%. It does concern me that we've been around that 20 in the 20s all this year. That is going to come and bite us on the bum soon.
Yeah.
Again, just to give you a flavour, that is okay. This is standalone for the week, but again, it gives you a flavour. And these prices hardly change. They're like super tankers; they don't go up and down all the time. But you can see here that the average asking price, in the green, pardon me, is going at a higher rate, and then the turquoise is the average asking price of the property selling. And notice that there is, one is okay, the greens are lifting, but they are not growing as much. But look how the turquoise is drifting downwards.
Another very accurate stats, and I appreciate you doing a tremendous amount of this work, but a really interesting addition to this that would probably tie these things in quite beautifully would be when you take the 372, 676 there, 876 there, those units that achieve sales at that average house price, I would be fascinated. And I used to look at this in quite minute detail. What were the asking prices of those particular properties? So if you take all the properties that sold, the 23,500 properties that went under offer in week 19, and you look at their specific asking prices, then you'll have quite a good number to understand the correlation between what is the market doing. Is there a 5% drop from the original asking price to the sale agreed price, or is it a 10% drop? And that will give very good data to be able to, for your watchers, your viewers and listeners who are agents, to say, well, look, if the average nationally is a 10% of that price before that house sells, well, then there's no point in us dropping it down by 2 and 3% in little increments. We need to go big or go home with our first change in price, and then we're more likely to affect a sale, which is ultimately what they're employed to do on behalf of their customer.
Yeah, we employ, as you've rightly said a number of times, we're here to sell houses. No,
Yeah.
sorry, we're here to get people moved, not just market them.
Correct.
Anything else on the sales before we move on and look at fall throughs?
No, just the points I've made. I think I've covered it, and as I say, I expect to see that bounce up nicely over the next 2 weeks before we have the next bank holiday.
Okay, so next up is the number of fall throughs. So this is properties that are in estate agents' pipelines that have fallen through this week. And our number of fall throughs is 5,266, which is a slight reduction of last week. But the next graph is the more important one, which is the percentage. Just to give you an idea, last week it was 6,172, the week before 5,9, the week before 5,9, the week before that 5,7. But again, fall throughs, you just have to take it with a slight pinch of salt. It's more the percentages and the long term. So we prefer to look at this graph here, which looks at the number of sales agreed this week compared to the number of sales from the sales pipeline that have fallen through. For anyone that's not watched the show before, the spikes are Christmas, and the numbers are so small that we have spikes. So you can ignore those. If you're looking at the general trend, again, for anyone that's not watched the show, this uplift here was the quasi-quartile budget, where we had 40% fall throughs. Then she dropped down to around 21% in the spring of 23. We had this uplift here is interest rates rising in the summer of 23. Again, us drifting downwards to around the 20, and now we're in the same territory now at the moment, bouting around the 21 or 22%. And again, ladies and gentlemen, again, we're not going to turn this into an advert, but Bryan runs Gazelle, and who uses reservation agreements, and the reservation agreements, and again, I'll say it, Bryan, because if you say it's a sales technique, I can say it, single-digit fall-throughs, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm telling you here and now, if there are some the 3 game-changer things at the moment in estate agency, I just wrote them down earlier on, is that, no sale, no fee. I'm hearing a lot more at the moment where we've got monies being paid up front for marketing and things like that. The fabric of estate agency is changing. So that's the first one. The next one is the self-employed model. That is taking, EXP are going to be nearly the size of the likes of your Hearts very, very soon. That's unbelievable. You would never have thought of that. But honestly, the likes of Savills, if they carry on at the growth they are, they will be bigger than Savills or Hart within about 3 or 4 months, that's unheard. You wouldn't have thought that, would you?
No, it's absolutely indicative of the trends of the British public now and the people's attitudes. I think it's fantastic that there's a lot more entrepreneurialism out there. And ultimately, the message is if you're selling black trainers and everybody wants to buy white ones, you're going to be dead pretty soon. Your business will be dead. Yeah. So you've got to change with the times or you'll be left behind. Adapt or die. That's the whole point, right? Just Chris, well, I've got one point. Sorry to cut across you there, but again, doing my research before on this, and of course, as you know, I've said before, I look at this on a daily basis. To put this into perspective, okay, we can sit here and say, well, look, good, the average is coming down, and that's all. It was a nightmare before, and so on. But that is still this week, in the space of a bank holiday week, 10,000 people whose lives have been put on hold again and I've been left vulnerable. And so that's bad enough. But the second thing is that's 19 million pound of commission that is now not going to be achieved in the timeline that people were hoping it would be. So when we sit here and say, isn't the market great? 83 million pound of sales coming through from a commercial point of view, but of 83 million pounds, you're handing back nearly 20 million pounds of that, or kicking that can further down the road, when as the time progresses, there's more and more solutions, us, everybody, lots of other people that can actually, if you can cut that 19 million to 5 million, it's 14 million pounds into the industry. That's got to be a good thing, right? And not to mention all the people that will move when they weren't thinking about it or weren't planning to.
Absolutely bang on, and that's why I said the three things that I'll check. I'll just go back is as I said, no sell, no fees starting to become a thing of the past. Self-employed is irreversible, and the third one is reservation agreements and deposits. And again, I will just state for the record, there are other firms available.
Yeah.
Not only we're not here to promote Gazelle, even though they were the forerunner and a lot of people use them, but do check them out, because it really does change the fall through rate from 20 in the 20s to single digits. It is that powerful. And again, the government are talking about it. They've mentioned it. The Home Buying and Selling Group have mentioned it as well. This is going to be coming law probably in the next few years. Why don't you actually get a commercial advantage and get on the bandwagon now, so you can start earning the power notes now? Come on,
The
guys.
irony is that a lot of these people who you mentioned already, the self-employed models, are adopting new ways of doing things and winning business quite comfortably over the old established guard. Back to my point earlier on, adapt or die, right?
Well, there you go. So there's actually some linkage there. So there you go. Right, let's move on and look at net sales. So again, ladies and gentlemen, what are net sales? Number of gross sales this week. So we said this week, and I'll just
3,600.
There you go. And then we remove the number of sales that have come out of the sales pipeline. That gives us our net sales. So in terms of this week, our net sales are down because our gross sales are down. And this is nothing that's not unexpected. But again, if you look at the dip, we had a dip at Easter, and we've got another dip now, and then she'll bounce back up, and then we'll have another dip for the May bank holiday, and then off we go. And then, as Brian rightly says, what happens from week 23 onwards is how we're going to judge. But do remember, this is the time to make hay, as again Brian says, because she drifts. That's what happens in the market. The market does drift. So make hay while the sun shines. Year to date, 357,475 net sales. This is the stuff we're going to get paid on our exchanges. And that means that is 105.2% of what it was in 17, 18, and 19. And I'll just very briefly pick up what that difference is. And that is 12.5% more than last year. Thoughts on net sales?
If you haven't got enough, if your net sales are low, it's because you haven't got enough gross sales. That's always the point.
If you haven't got enough gross sales, then you haven't got enough listings, or you haven't been reducing them.
Back to the thing. It is literally, it's a process, right? How good is your business at managing, your operating system of the life of one of your customers? And I mean, the moving life, obviously. And that's why these stats are just so absolutely vital. I said, I think a few shows ago, data-driven decisions, that's what this is. What's going in the top of the cabinet, what's coming out the bottom. And those two things can be affected by you. The middle section of gross, net, and so on will be a product of your operating systems, your strategy, and obviously the volume that you're putting in.
Excellent. You can see why we're asking back quite often, ladies and gentlemen, because Brian certainly knows his onions. Right, a couple of graphs. This is for all you data geeks here. Tell us what these two mean, Brian, and what the importance is, because these were put in just for you.
Hey, yeah. Well, this is what we used to, and we still do measure the market by, is basically two things on this. The number of properties. I used to talk about the old days of agency, which is still my favorite, of the cabinet, the net cabinet we talked about. And what I'm referring to is a filing cabinet with 4 drawers. Your top one, in go your listings. So let's say you put 10 of those in the top drawer. You would expect 7.2 of those this year to achieve a sale. And then if you can lock in your sales and stop them from falling apart, then you'll see your listings turn into cash quicker and more often than if you do absolutely nothing with it. So this graph shows 72.08% for the 2024. It's 72% of the properties you list are achieving a successful, acceptable offer from a buyer.
Indeed, this is a standalone week, but it's been at those sort of levels
Yeah.
most of the year, so that's good. So we just keep an eye on that one. Let's just go and have a look at price changes as the percentage of listings. So there we are. We are working our stock, but remember, listings are down because of the bank holiday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay. Let's move on and look at some more stats. And again, normally around the middle of the month, I am generous to you all, and you get some special stuff because it does take a while to do these graphs. But I allot an hour and a half to do these middle of the month. And the first thing is this. These are the brand new. This is the brand new. So this is the number of properties for sale. So all the yellow lines are April, and we take the measure at the end of the month, right? So at the end of April, there were 672,694 properties for sale on the books in the UK. And then we compare that with all the other 31st of Aprils, and you can quite clearly see here that for a decent amount of time, this is one of the highest levels of stock. But do remember, this doesn't concern me because we were at 1.4 million in 2008, where we had an excess of supply and not enough demand. Any thoughts on this, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2.3 billion pounds worth of commission sitting there. I might have got my numbers wrong, but and I'm working, just so you know, I'm working out the average commission on an estate agency at 3.5 grand, which I think is reasonably straightforward, reasonably safe. So as a business, you're looking at 672,000 properties for sale. They are cost liabilities that you've spent money to achieve, to put them in your top drawer of your cabinet. And then therefore, if you've got £2 billion, you would expect a 72% gross sale rate that you just saw on the previous graph. So therefore, that's going to be 1 point something billion. My brain's not working as quickly as it should. So, and then if you know your fall through rate of 20%, then you can actually see what amount of cash you should be expecting to bank in your business within the next 5 months. And therefore, if that's not going to be enough to deliver your expectations or keep you open, then you need to take action right now. And that's why these figures are so incredibly important, to have a grasp of what is our current asset, potential asset inventory. Every single property you have for sale in any estate agency, be it, you know, a one-man band or a corporate business, is potential revenue. And obviously we're talking the commercial side here. This is more, you know, 672,000 families that need your help to get them moved, whose lives are on hold until you can get them a buyer. So, but from a commercial perspective, you know, let's say it's 2 billion quid, then you're looking at 1.3, 1.4, well, probably 1.5, 1.6 billion pounds worth of potential gross sales. And then you're looking at £1 billion, 1.3 billion pounds of exchanges. And there's your measurement, you know. So what you get between the 672 and the exchanges, that's what you need to work really hard on to get that through faster and more often, because the numbers are frighteningly good if you can get them right.
Thank you, Brian. This is a graph which shows the levels of properties for sale split down by region. Now, I would say, ladies and gentlemen, you might be watching this on YouTube. I certainly hope you're not watching it on a phone, because you won't be able to see the graphs particularly well. But all the graphs are available to download. Go to YouTube, look at and also if you're listening on the SoundCloud, on the podcast, they're also on there in the description part. And there is a link, and you can download all these graphs. These graphs can be used internally and can also be used on valuations. But what I do ask is that you don't use them on social media, because I do have to hold something back for my own fee-paying clients that pay me as a job as a statistician to give them some stuff. But you can use, I'm happy for you to use them at valuations to make you look like you know what you're talking about.
And for anybody watching black and white, the top line is the green one.
This is a graph which shows the number of properties for sale at the end of April compared to the end of April 23. And this is, again, a new graph. And again, it just gives you a flavour that we've, you know, isn't it interesting that the Southwest have got the most properties, whilst the Northern Ireland is the other way around.
That's a really good one, actually, because if you're looking at that as a business, I mean, we often talk in these shows about using these stats and applying your own localized numbers to these to see where you sit in the national averages. It's a good benchmark. Every region's up. So if your business is not listing as many as it was last year, something needs to change pretty quickly.
Very much so. And again, you might say, well, why is this particularly of interest? Well, again, what you've got to remember is this, and we'll just pull this up now, is that the Property Academy does a survey of 10,000 vendors every single year for their best estate agent guide. And they ask various different questions. And again, I think this is a particular one. Isn't it interesting that only 10% of vendors said they wanted the cheapest estate agent? But here we go, confidence to sell a property, liked and trusted them, and good reputation. These are something that's just soft and feely, but this is the good market knowledge. And if you talk about the market, this is what over a third of homeowners want. They want someone who knows what they're talking about. So that's why it's so important to talk about the local property market. And if you, I know at the end we're looking at Hereford, but do watch that, because we're going to show you some software that shows you how to beat overvaluation and agents that overvalue and reduce the prices and don't sell houses, and with fees and things. So you do watch that. And also we'll show you a solution on how to become the local property market guru in your town. But anyway, let's get back to the graph arenas. This particular graph, again, is new for the month. It's not new. It shows its head back once a month. And this is the number of properties that are presently in estate agents' pipelines. Units, not pound notes. And we're looking at the end of April. So on the 31st, 31st of April. Was it 30th of April? Oh, well, never mind. 30th of April. There were 436,879 properties in estate agents' pipelines, compared to 380,000 at the end of April 2023. I mean, if you'd have said at the start of the year, if you'd have said, back in 22, that the sales pipelines would be, hell of a lot more. Okay, we're not talking 21, 22 levels, but if they were around the 360 mark and say they're at 4,360, considering that the average in the spring of 17, 18 and 19 was around the 320 mark, 330 mark, it's not bad, is it?
No, it's not bad. I mean, in all fairness, though, the start of last year was pretty shocking after the back end of August 2022. Q4 was shocking in 2020, wasn't it? So you'd expect we've seen, the positivity continue to rise all through 2023 and carry on into 2024, which has been really great. We've had a number of years in the past where it's been the opposite way around. We've had a bit of a very uncertain start. This year, as we said, I think at the right beginning of the year, the early signs were there was lots of really real positivity coming through. I mean, to put it into perspective, you've got a 1.5 UK billion-pound sales pipeline, which is phenomenal. But again, the trick is always going to be now. If you look at those numbers, a number of years ago, we would say 436,879 sales in your pipeline should turn into 436,879 exchanges within 3 months, right? You can't say that anymore. You're now saying that's 4, possibly 5 months. Absolutely. So why on earth are we still not doing something about getting your customers to exchange faster? Because if you can do that, if you can turn 436,879 every 3 months, like we used to do back in the good old days, as we always say, wow, that is an absolutely enormous and insane change to people's revenues, livelihoods, the market, the industry, and the customers' welfare.
Okay, so we've got the home buying and selling group trying to do stuff with government. Yeah. Let's assume that they'll come good, but it'll take a while. Let's assume that we're going to cut fall throughs by using reservation agreements. There's got to be other stuff, upfront information, material information is going to help. Getting solicitors instructed, come on, valuers, get your bloody solicitors instructed. Again, they're more likely to be a lot stickier and not leave your agency. And again, let's put the prices on at the right prices, and then let's get the bloody thing sold.
So if you think about what you've just said, right, which you're absolutely right, reservations won't solve the problem on its own. It's too much of a heavy task. There needs to be a combination of things to work together in unison that actually achieve that goal for the consumer and therefore the natural beneficiary, which is the agent. But, it's a big but, if we rely on the home buying and selling group and the government and the subcommittees, parliamentary committees, and so on and so on, we are probably going to be having this conversation in 5 years, okay? The estate agency community out there have the power to make the change. Conveyancers will eventually toe the line if the agent, who is the first responder to the seller can actually start to take this seriously and just remove this lethargy around, oh, it's what always happens, you know. And they have a responsibility. I would be really strong here, because I very rarely see an estate agent's website that doesn't say, we put our customer at central, we have a tailored solution, we are bespoke, we love the client. Well, then do something about it, because that is not good enough.
Absolutely bang on. And the challenge we have as a estate agency industry is that, just have a look at this. This is market. This is since 2019.
I shared this morning with a few regulators.
Excellent. So the first to 10th estate agent in terms of number of listings have 12.5% of the market. Then the 11th to 100, 19.7. But look at this. The 1,001st largest estate agent all the way to the 15,161st have a third of the market. Even though that is well over nearly 90% of the market, 85, 90% of the market, we only have 33%.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to change, ladies and gentlemen, is if you take, there is lots of solutions out there. Talk to the likes of Bryan with reservation agreements. Other firms are available. Talk to the likes of Simon Ware at Cavufel to see what other solutions there are when it comes to PropTech. Speak with your solicitors. What is absolutely amazing is people who outsource their sales progression get them through on average in 11 or 12 weeks. Well, does that mean they're no better than your negs? It's just that your negs are probably just doing it at the end of the day. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow.
Look, you know what it is actually, Chris? And that's a really good point you've made there that's triggered something that I'm about to say and interrupt you, which forgive me, I always do. And that is, there's no difference to a solicitor versus a conveyancer. Right? If you use a solicitor, their attention on your particular case will be diminished because of other legal responsibilities. You use a conveyancer, that won't. Because that's all they do is do conveyancing.
And even if you got the conveyancing, you've got to manage them in a certain way, which means it doesn't piss them off, but at the same time, make sure yours rises to the top, because cream, as you know, always rises to the top. Right. Okay, let's move on. We've got some more beautiful graphs for you. So we showed you this week, but someone that might have not done this, might have not seen this, ignore the red line. This is pound per square foot at new listings, which again is proof that there is some overvaluing here, ladies and gentlemen. How's your legs? The orange line is the pound per square foot at sale agreed. The greeny line is the pound per square foot at exchanged, which in essence is the land registry figures. If you move the orange line 5 months to the right, it will match with a 98% correlation, which means if you follow the orange line, which is the sale agreed pound per square foot, we know what will happen to the land registry in 5 months' time. Hence that there was the nationwide drop that everyone was going, end of the world. Okay. Just honestly, ladies and gentlemen, move that orange line and you'll be absolutely, look, there you go, orange line there, there's the green line there. So just stay with it. The property market is showing signs, continuing that the pounds. Is this going up at the same rate of inflation? No, but the nominal headline price is. Couple of extra graphs here, which I showed you last week, but I think not you, but others. This is the proportionality of properties that are in the sales pipeline versus properties that are sold. So you can see here in 21, there was a greater proportion of properties sold than available, but just keep an eye on those trends. Those are just the actual numbers, just to keep an eye out it. Now let's move on and look, and again, this is really difficult to see on a screen, but this is the number of available rental properties, okay? And that is for the whole of the UK. Again, download these graphs, you'll be able to see them in greater detail. And this is the number of rental properties excluding London and the Southeast, because was it the other way around? I think it's the other way around. There you go. That one, so that is everyone. But because everything looks like a mealy fleur at one of those nice cakes, just doing a cake. I'm not just looking at the size of me, I don't need one. So if we take out the red lines and yellow lines, we get this graph here. Now, interestingly, in terms of the number of residential properties for rent, we, on average, we're 27.6% number of available properties coming up for rent, 27.6% lower than it was in April 19. This graph here shows the average number of the average rent per region. The red figure is what it was in 2016, and the black number is what the average is for rents this year. So again, just something to have a look. Now, this is interesting, Brian, is that in the last 12 months, the number of available rental properties coming on the market has increased.
Yeah.
That surprised you, didn't it?
It did surprise me, actually. Absolutely.
There you go. So Northern Ireland's a bit different, but yeah, so that is particularly interesting.
I wonder how many of those, and we used to look at this, I wonder how many of those are properties that are taking too long to sell, and therefore, as a viable alternative, people are considering moving on and having them rented out. I don't know, obviously, but I suspect some of them would be.
What is also interesting is this, and again, I haven't got a graph on this because I've run out of time, but the growth of rents generally in the UK in 2024 has begun to level out. So I look at it on a month by month basis, and the average rent this month, you know, is very similar to what it was last month, which is very similar to the month before.
Interestingly enough, I know firsthand of people very close to me that have been renting for a while, which they prefer to do. The agent is the one that is driving the rental up, and the landlord is bucking against it because they're saying, hey, look, you know, I appreciate what you're saying, but we start pushing the rents too high, then what happens is our tenants can't afford the property, go into default. We've then got additional costs, or they vacate, and then we struggle to find somebody else and end up reverting back to what we charged in the first place. So let's just stay where we are. And that's happening. I've heard that a number of times recently, which is good.
Interestingly, Labour's said that they might be looking at some rent controls, and so very soon I'm going to be writing an article for my clients on this. But it actually proves that rent controls do actually force rents up, because what will happen is the landlords will bump up the ones. So, you know, let's just take that. We're not being political there, but let's just be aware of that, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Right. Okay, Brian, that's the end of the national show. I will be asking you at the end for your final thoughts on everything. So what I'd like us to do now is move over and go and look at the city of Hereford. Let's go and have a look. Ladies and gentlemen, we're using the 20EA Insights platform for this, and this is available to any estate agent. There is a freemium version, a free version, and also if you pay some shekels, you do get the bigger version with up to 10 postcodes, and then you can have bigger versions as well. Let's have a look and just see what the score is on this. So we can see here, since the 1st of Jan 2019 to May the 24th till May 24, we can see who's been putting what on the market. Let's look at Flint and Cook. It looks like their market share is growing, isn't it? Yeah. Connells. Okay. Watkins Thomas. Again, for the purposes of this, the postcodes are HR1, 2, and 4. Andrew Morris. Looks like you guys have been dropping there with your Jackson Properties. Let's look at Chancellors. Glass House, Be Moved, Stoke and Hall, Cobb Amos, Sunderland's and Thompson's, Hunters, Purple Bricks, Brooks, Trivets, The Good Estate Agent, Northwood, Diamond, and Belvoir. We'll just look at Bell Homes as well. So in terms of that, let's look at who the upper quartile agent is, okay? Just to have a look at that. So we are looking for probably, there we go. So the upper quartile, so we're looking at a bit more of that upper quintile, even the upper sixth, whatever that number is. And it looks like Fint and Cluck and Glasshouse are the agents of choice in the upper quartile. Any thoughts on that, Brian?
No, just obviously it's you know, particularly with the guys that you showed a moment ago, the Glasshouse and Flint and Cook. It's great to see that actually they have a brand that clearly is stretching across the entire market. That shows a good pedigree.
And good to see Connells there, because Connells have not done particularly well in some of our recent shows, but that's not bad at all. But Flint and Cook seem to be the agent of choice there, so I'm wondering what they're doing to get some business growth there. In terms of stock levels that are on the market, again, we look at full months. So full months, so in April 24, there was 1,098 properties available in those 3 postcodes, which compared to 2 years ago at 510, there's a doubling of properties for sale. And again, you can just have a look at this and just get a flavour of what different agents are doing with their stock levels. In terms of agents, in terms of properties, most agents will look at new instructions and new instruction market share, but the real gold is here with exchanged and withdrawn. And the bottom line is, since the 24th of November 2021, Flint and Cook have exchanged contracts on 71.78% of the properties that left their books and only withdrew 28. Connell's at 59 and Watkins and Thomas at 72. So therefore, if I was either Watkins, Thomas or Flint and Cook in the 70s, you could say I will exchange, you've got a 7 in 10 chance of moving home, whilst with the other agents, you've got a less than 6 in 10 chance of moving, which is powerful stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And that's really, again, we say that every single time, in every single time we look at, if you've got those stats and you understand them, then use them to promote your business, because it's a powerful thing that the public will take interest in.
We'll just have a look at, there's a good one there. Stuke Hill and Walsh at 84, that's good. Just so again, we'll just have a flavour of what the stats are about. What we'll do now, Brian, is any agent who is looking to get in Hereford that is looking to get more business, we're just going to have just a brief interlude where I will talk about how to get more listings. So we'll go there now. If you are a Hereford estate or letting agent, then you are going to be knocked off sometimes when you go onto Rightmove and notice that you haven't been called out to loads of properties that come on the market. If you want to be an attractive agent, you have to be attractive, and therefore you have to talk about stuff that is of interest to homeowners and landlords. By looking at most of your social media, all of you tend to talk about yourselves, listing, how good we are. That is not attractive to homeowners. But what is attractive to homeowners is what's happening in the local property market, because everyone is obsessed about the value of their own home. So if you believe that homeowners are obsessed, and I'll just share this stat with you here, but 36% of people instructed an estate agent based on the good market knowledge. This is a survey of over 10,000 estate agents. So therefore, if you want to attract landlords and homeowners to you, one thing you could do is talk about the local property market. It's what Savills have been doing for years, and it's a service that I can offer one agent in Hereford. You see, the services that I offer over just to one agent per town or city is that I create content for them, which is on the local property market. Let me show you some examples of what I do for many agents around the country. I talk about what's happening to house prices. I show them interesting stats. This is one on Hereford about the high EPC ratings, the number of properties sold, just whether it's a buyer's market, whether it's a seller's market, what's happening to house prices, what's happening to yields. This is all interesting stuff. And this is the sort of stuff that I provide. I also provide more regional and national graphics, which again, you can publish. And again, this is on Canva, so you could put your logo here and change your logo, change that to your branding. You could talk, as I said, about anything to do with the property market. I also create decent thought leadership articles about the property market. And again, that's something that I write. And again, there's an example of one here on Hereford about the pound per square foot and how different 3 beds and 4 beds change in price. You could say some people are not going to read that, but they are the same style as the Times or Telegraph. So if you're looking for the middle to upper market, these are particularly powerful, whilst the more visual ones are for the lower to middle market, therefore capturing all the market. It also attracts landlords and vendors. And finally, I can also be your guide and coach and with regard to marketing to attract people to your agency. Now, I can only work for one agent in a town, so I don't know if that's going to be you or not. But if you want to pick up the phone to me, my telephone number is 07950 147 572. And just for total openness, my costs are £350 plus VAT. And for that, you will receive at least 12 pieces of content, 4 big, gutsy thought leadership articles, 4 hyperlocal fillers, and 4 national stat fillers, and me as your guru. So if you would like a competitive advantage over your estate agents and letting agents in Hereford and want some guidance and support to get more listings, then maybe we should chat. My name, as I said, is Chris Watkin, 07950 147 572. Without obligation, pick up the phone to me. But if you are very happy where you are, then please ignore me and let's get back to the show. Okay, we're back back to the show now. So this particular one here shows the graphs which show whether there's some overvaluing or not. And what is particularly nice to see is that the average agent in in Hereford is only overvaluing by 0.67%. So therefore, this is nice. These are quite low numbers, aren't they? Chancellors look like they're overvaluing at 4.07, but these are nice and tight, aren't they?
Yeah. It shows a really good grasp of local conditions.
You'll notice here that in terms of what you get off the original asking price, so Flint and Cook will get 3.404% off the original asking price, whilst Connells will get 4.36. Again, we talked about that earlier on. You know, Connells are reducing their prices a lot, 42 compared to the average. Again, nothing against Connells, these are just the way you run your business. So really, in terms of what you actually get for the property, you take this from that and you get the net figure. And you can quite clearly see here that Flint and Cook, if they put on the £400,000 house, they will get 389, Connells 387, Andrew Morris 389, Jackson Property 392. And you can go down here, and this basically is a great way of showing your vendors, I will get you more money for your house. This is what this graph says. You know, it doesn't say that, but that is what it is. Okay. Let's move on and look at which agents are selling the houses the quickest. And we can see here that it appears that Stoke, Hall and Walsh are selling the houses quicker because that's the blue line. And then the pink line is the how long it takes to do a conveyancing. Just to give you an idea, 70 days it takes to find a buyer in the last year compared to 48 days the year before. So that's April 23 to April 24, it takes 70 days, and then April 22 to April 23, 48 days.
Wow, it's quite a big jump there, actually.
That's quite a big jump. But you get a similar flavour. They're nice and tight. That's nice to see here, but you can see here that Connells are taking a lot longer. But again, that's something to do with the fact is that it looks like they do do price reductions. So again, just be aware of that, and you can use that to your advantage when at the property. This particular graph shows you the red line shows you the average asking price of properties new instructed, the green line properties that are exchanging, and the difference between the two. And the art there is to see that how they diverge or not. Lots more details here. Again, as I said, available on the 20EA platform, Insights platform. We're not here to sell it. I'm not being paid. There's no commission. I just love it, and it just but they're happy to share it with you. Finally, we're looking at the lettings, and it shows here that Belvoir are the main dominant agent in Hereford. Well done, Belvoir. Flint and Cook, as you can see here, at number 2, Arenas at number 3, Cobb Amos. And let's just have just a quick look before we go, ladies and gentlemen, just to see how the different agents and are performing in terms of and their market share, and then we'll leave Bryan in peace. Just wait a second. Here we go. So that is Belvoir. So you can see that Belvoir, again, there's a general growth there. Interestingly, open rent. You see, open rent have grown from an average of around 4% to around 13% in the UK. So we're getting a bit of growth here, not as much as the UK, but it still is growing. So just be aware of that. Let's just have a quick look at the other lettings. And again, this just might be of interest to everyone watching. And again, I just, you know, this bit of kit is a fantastic bit of kit to show you how well you are performing as an agent. Anyway, Bryan, final thoughts for you, sir.
No, I think it's really good. I mean, that part on open rent is very interesting, and it's a lesson to everybody that, you know, if you're, you know, on the high street or even, you know, or not, whatever, however you're practicing as an agent, know this. The businesses like open rent and various other ones, the new ones that are coming into the market, are coming in with different ways of doing things, that with all of the intent of moving things forward to make the journey for a landlord and a tenant, or a buyer and a seller, easier and more efficient. So we say it a lot. What are you doing about it? What has your business done this year that you can measure? Because you only measure what matters. And what matters is, how are you improving the journey of your customer? It doesn't matter who they are. We used to talk about a 4D customer: tenant, buyer, seller, landlord. They're all the same person. What are you doing to help those people that's better than it was last year, the year before, or last week? And if you use the stats as your barometer, then you can actually measure the performance of that and the improvement of that. But ultimately, if you do what you say on your website, focus on the needs of your clients, then you should be tackling that, and you should be making it better for them. And you do that, you'll get market share. And funny enough, profit comes when you help customers better.
Bryan, as always, thank you for your insight. Wonderful as ever. More importantly, thank you for watching the show. If you've got any questions, do not hesitate to drop me a line on social media or put a comment in YouTube. Thank you for your time today, and let's say goodbye, Bryan.
Goodbye, Bryan.